Welcome back to our Coffee and Contracts series. I'm Stephen Long, broker and instructor, here to discuss with you and wrap up the Offer to Purchase and Contract Standard Form 2T. We are currently on page 10, and things are starting to move along pretty quickly now, as some of the paragraphs are just brief line items and not necessarily long drawn out paragraphs with sub-paragraphs or sub-items. So we left off talking about the additional addenda that could be attached to the offer to purchase and contract. We currently have 13 that are standard forms in our arsenal that we could use to attach. You can always attach anything to this contract as long as it is attorney drafted. Remember, we do not draft. Brokers don't write anything. That's why we use standard addenda. That's why they I've taken away any blanks that we can write in. If you have to write more than a word or two, you might be drafting. Drafting is illegal unless, of course, you are an attorney, and if you are an attorney, draft away. Otherwise, if you're a broker, you cannot practice law without an attorney's license, so you will want to make sure to consult with an attorney if you need something like that drafted. That's quite simply the addenda section. I want to bump down to paragraph 16 that says assignments. This offer to purchase and contract is not an assignable contract. Can it be assigned? Possibly, with mutual agreement between buyer and seller, but it becomes at that point more of a novation with a new contract and new parties. But this offer to purchase and contract is not assignable. So whomever the parties are to this contract are the enforceable parties. We can't substitute anybody in and out. Number 17, tax-deferred exchange. If this buyer is doing a 1031 exchange, or the seller is doing a 1031 tax-deferred exchange, firstly, you want to contact the tax deferring or the 1031 company and be in touch with them and make sure that they're in line with all the deadlines and procedures. Also want to consult with your attorney to make sure that everything is in line with that. So 1031s can be a little bit different, but just know that if you need to do a 1031, you need to consult with the proper people to make sure that you meet the timelines, meet the deadlines, and that money's never hit the seller's hands to avoid, again, paying the tax, hence the tax deferred exchange. 18 parties to the contract are the buyer and sellers. The end. Brokers are not on this contract. Firms are not on this contract. Our information is at the end, but we are not parties to the contract. The only parties to this contract are listed on page 1 at the top, buyer and seller. So those are the parties. Right of survivorship on or survival on paragraph 19 says that this contract will be binding on the heirs of the parties. So if the parties identified in section or page 1 under paragraph 1, if either of those parties should perish or something should happen to them, this contract is actually still binding on their estate and their heirs. So that's important to point out. Also on paragraph 20, it says we've gone over the entire agreement, and this is the entire agreement. There is no hidden deals, no handshakes, no under the tables, that this is the entire contract. So that is essentially what paragraph 20 says. 21, conduction of the transaction. The parties agree that any action between them related to this contract has been identified in this contract. Again, we're just trying to prevent fraud here to make sure that there's no seller held seconds or handshake deals, no other loans being carried that nobody knows about, no kickbacks. So everything that is being agreed upon contractually is identified in this contract. 22, execution. That just says that they could actually, in some capacities, have the exact same document in duplicate. So we have 2 copies of the exact same document. Buyer signs one, seller signs one. Together, they are still one binding contract. As long as they are identical, it just says that they don't actually have to physically sign the same document. So if buyer signs one exact copy and seller signs one exact same copy, we can kind of put them together, and that is execution of the entire agreement because they're both agreeing to the same terms. And in computations of days, we are now in the real world where we have a computation of days, and it's 365 days a year, the appropriate days in the month, and sometimes 366 days in a year if we have a leap year. So that is how we prorate and computate days. And that, my friend, is the end of page 2. Short, simple, to the point, and we'll see you on page 11.